Good morning, welcome. We are here to talk about partnering to reduce fraud, a hot topic across our system and one that we continue to work to mitigate. We're going to talk about our enhanced student ID verification with the new option of the California DMV's mobile driver's license. And we've got a few housekeeping items that we want to make sure everyone's aware of. We have our questions and answers will be done through the Q&A feature. So if you click the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen, you'll have the option to ask questions during the webinar. We will answer them as we go in the Q&A function and also live as we progress through the slides. We have closed captioning available, and we will also be distributing this recording usually within 5 to 10 days after remediation for accessibility. So please use the Q&A function. The chat is not live, so make sure that your questions are going into the Q&A. And we'll go ahead and get started with our agenda. We will introduce our panelists, talk about why we verify student identity, show you the user experience for the new functionality of the DMV wallet and the mobile driver's license. We'll walk through that process, including the mechanism that you can use if you'd like to try it out. We'll talk about the technical details for local implementation. And at the end, if there are questions and answers that we haven't gotten to, then we will address those at that time. So again, make sure that you're using that Q&A window, and any questions that aren't answered live during the webinar will be distributed with the recording and added to our frequently asked questions page, where we will make sure that they are all addressed. I want to start with some introductions of our Chancellor's Office executive sponsors. We have today joining us Jory Hadsell, a visiting executive with the Strategic Technology, can't even say the word technology initiatives in the Information Security Technology and Innovation Division. And we have Craig Hayward, Vice Chancellor for AI Strategy and Digital Transformation, also in that division. And on behalf of the CCC Technology Center, I'm Jennifer Coleman, the Executive Director. We also have Jane Linder, our Statewide Program Director for our Student Success Suite, which includes the application and account for our student users, and Mike Crusoe, our Product Owner over that same suite. So at this time, I will turn it over to our Chancellor's Office executive sponsors to introduce the topics.
Thank you so much, Jennifer, and thank you everyone for your time today attending. It's an important moment to make sure everyone across our system is aware of the new option that we'll have for students to identify or verify their identity. We always like to start and frame the conversations from a student-centered perspective. So again, this is a kind of our charge around the vision and digital equity. And so, to ground us, we're really focused on anyone in California who's seeking that post-secondary education, regardless of who they are, where they live, how long they've been out of high school, and their preferred modality. They should have on-demand access. And so that guides the work that we're doing and informs our strategy going forward. So I'd like to talk just for a moment about, why verify student identity. And, I think most or all of our colleges and folks who are working hard to serve students are aware of the challenges that we've had recently really in the last couple of years around student identity and fraud. And even though the amount of actual financial aid fraud in the system is very small, our students are impacted when ghost students, bot students, and the others get into courses and take up seats that our real students need. And so a lot of this work is to make sure that we maintain access for our real students to the classes they need so that they can, of course, complete their education in a timely way. So moving forward, with the DMV mobile wallet, you may recall in 2024, we rolled out as a system the ID.me option for verification. That happens at the OpenCCC account creation process, which of course is that precursor to filling out the CCC Apply application. Since then, we've expanded data that's available to colleges and the ability for colleges to refer students back to ID.me to verify their status if they hadn't already done so. With the DMV mobile wallet, we're adding a secondary option for identity verification that we believe is student-friendly and that will sit alongside ID.me as another option for identity verification. So that option, again, is to leverage the new DMV mobile wallet and the mobile driver's license. And you may hear us refer to it as an MDL. That's kind of the lingo for the mobile driver's license. The other reason this is important to partner with DMV as part of our strategy for holistically validating student identity and making sure the students enrolling in classes are actually the students taking those classes is because DMV holds the actual identity information for millions of Californians. And we believe this is superior to a lot of third-party services that have to try to match, an ID or a copy of an ID to actual demographic information. So by working with DMV, it gets us really to a validated source of truth that we haven't had so far. So we're excited about this partnership. We think this will become a preferred and a convenient option for students if and if they're not able to use the mobile driver's license, they can simply switch over to the ID.me verification. So in terms, again, of student identity verification with the mobile driver's license, this really began as a collaboration with DMV as part of the Chancellor's Office recent push to create a more layered strategy toward fraud mitigation, and identity verification is a big part of that. So again, as mentioned, this comes into play at the point of student account creation, although it could be leveraged downstream later in other ways as well. And the plan for making this available to colleges to familiarize yourself with the workflows and to test it out yourselves is to put this into the pilot environment for the users on October 31st, and then to make it available in the production environment where it would be student facing on or around November 14th. So that's kind of the timeline that's associated with this. If you would like to review the documentation, we do have links in here. We'll also share those links for everybody to the DMV documentation that talks about how to use the wallet, how to verify, and how to set that up. That's important because we're partnering with DMV and they own the actual wallet. So as they make upgrades and add new functionality to that, we want to make sure folks know how to get that source information directly from DMV. And so again, what is the mobile driver's license? If you haven't heard about it, maybe through media reports or don't have one, it's a new, easy way to show your ID on a mobile device, on a phone. It works on an Android or iOS device. It's safe and fast, and it's private. We really like that it gives users, which in this case would be students, the ability when they're using it, whether it's at an airport through the TSA lane, or whether they're checking into their favorite establishment and need to show an ID, they have control over what data they share with the mobile driver's license. And in California, it is accepted as the equivalent to a physical driver's license. So again, without having to hand over a physical card, it creates a new digital way to verify an identity and share data. And then again, just kind of recapping, the benefits to students. Obviously, that control for students over the information they share is important, especially when we're in this era of data ownership, conversations about ethical use of data, or we can empower students. This is really a step in the right direction. Also, college licenses can use this smart limit. Everyone gives us an option to support ID DMV issued a relatively soon release after our initial deployment. And again, in terms of the, because we all of our colleges on fraud prevention and mitigation, but also the system-wide approach and acting as a system is important. So we are the first state agency as the Chancellor's Office to partner with these, but we also know, from talking with that there are additional agencies that have come behind us in line and who are planning to roll this out. That's important because many of our students interact with those agencies. Some of them are social service providers, and having this DMV wallet on their phone not only will allow them to access California community colleges, but may also streamline their experience in terms of interacting with those other agencies. So there's a benefit there. And in testing, we heard from students that they found this was pretty hassle-free. It was pretty smooth. Our hope is that as you look at the workflow that the Tech Center team is going to share here shortly, that you'll see that that's a pretty smooth workflow, and that again we're creating options for students, particularly those who may have particular issues that make it not feasible to do a certain type of identity verification. This also helps support our staff at the colleges. We know how many folks are spending a lot of time on this issue. And so by creating additional tools, in particular, one of the pieces of feedback we've had from colleges is that ANR, financial aid, and other staff aren't necessarily trained on how to recognize a valid ID, right? Fake driver's licenses in terms of physical form or even digital pictures of driver's licenses can be faked. So by matching with the actual DMV license, we're hoping this just creates another way to support our college staff. And this lets us save resources for other parts of the fraud battle by the partnership with DMV, which helps us to save the dollars associated with that and direct that to more student services. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to the Tech Center team to show us the student experience.
Thanks, Jory. We're going to step through the user experience, the screens that have been set up and the process. And then my colleague, Mike Crusoe, will actually do a walkthrough where he talks about the steps that students are going to take for this new process. Okay, once again, as Jory touched upon, this is really not a completely new identity verification process. In fact, this workflow is the same as what we're using today, just a new option with the DMV wallet. And so students will log in or create their account. They'll see the display asking them to verify their identity if they're an adult, ages 18 or older, and go through the same process. So I'm not gonna spend too much time on this, but we'll actually show the pictures, which I think convey it better. So as I mentioned, once the students log in or create their account, just as today, they'll see this interstitial page or this page that displays the options now that they have. Previously, they just saw ID.me. Now they see a side-by-side with the California DMV wallet and ID.me. Again, minors are not going to be prompted for this. They'll go directly to the application without seeing this page. And there is still an option to verify later. And there is still the information delivered via superglue to make that verification available to you as soon as it's completed. When a verification has been completed, again, just in the same manner as ID.me, the verification source, the verification system is the source of truth about that student. And so if there are differences in their name or their date of birth, those will be overwritten and the student will be given information about that. This will display when they log in to let them know that some of their account information might have changed. Now, the name is not going to change unless they actually really put in a different last name. If all the characters are the same, it's not going to be overwritten with all caps. It's going to stay how the student entered it. So if the student entered it all caps, it will remain that way. So it won't change the format, but it will change date of birth, those sorts of things, permanent address. Again, when they opt out, when an applicant opts out, you have the option to ask them to do this later. And unverified applicants are going to have a much higher likelihood of getting trapped in the spam filter. So when they're verified, possible. A request to after the fact, back in that verification, and then you'll get that information delivered immediately to your Superglue event table, which is standard right now for all the college. There's also, again, like with ID.me, the student's account profile page will also have their status, let them know if they are verified or unverified. Here's the decline verification. Again, the language is similar to the change. We made an update to this December with feedback from coaches in the office to try to let them know they should really only be declined if they can't do it, and that we urge them to verify their identity. And here's a picture of the account screen. By the unverified. So in addition to the verification status where it says expired or verified, unverified, you'll also see California DMV Wallet or ID.me so that you know. And once again, same process, but the user will be unverified if they change the name or their date of birth or their address. So won't be able to use the DMV. Well, obviously out of state license, but anyone who doesn't have a valid California driver access or smart, have their own phone wallet. And minors, there is a way that minors can get this, but it's they have to show up with their guardian or parent at a location that supports that. So it's not easy. Hopefully, maybe that'll get better as we move into this with the DMV. And also there's always, of course, we found applicants who prefer to verify their identity in person with staff at the college or by a session with the college staff. Accessibility, like with everything that the Technology Center does in terms of feature work and software development, we have our accessibility team do reviews as we're developing, and nothing is released with any blocking issues. So that's been built into this from the start. The DMV wallet is self-service only. I think it's very easy. I tried it, of course. I know a lot of you are probably trying it now or have already tried it. Setting it up is fairly straightforward, and the hope is that all of our students who try this process will be able to do that. We have a lot of new topics about identity verification and the DMV available in the ccchelp.info to help our students. And the 24/7 support team has updated our chat bots and with live agents with all this information, including frequently asked questions. So the chat bot, as always, is available in English and Spanish. And if the student actually really needs more help than self-service, then ID.me is certainly an option with their live support team. I'm going to hand it over to Mike Caruso now. He's going to walk through the steps of the verification process. Again, wanted to just emphasize that once the student clicks to use the California DMV wallet, it is handing it off to the DMV in that process. It actually, just like ID.me, they exit our system, go into that system until that verification is complete, which hands them back. So Mike?
Yeah, thanks, Jane. So I'm going to walk you guys through some of the screens that the students will be seeing if we want to jump over to one of those. So first and foremost, obviously we have what we call the interstitial page. This is the page that occurs during the account creation process. So this page is shown to any student that is unverified, that is presently unverified. So at the time the DMV launches, this will be available to two different kinds of people. There will be folks who are newly creating an account in OpenCCC on their way to CCC Apply. And in that case, they have the ability to choose, as we mentioned, obviously the DMV option, which is that one there on the left, or to go through the ID.me process, the existing ID.me process, by selecting the Verify with ID.me option on the right. It is important to mention that verifications in the OpenCCC system are valid for 365 days. So for returning students who have previously verified with ID.me, if that happened less than 365 days ago, they won't see this experience because they are still verified. However, as soon as that verification expires and they return to us, then they will be presented with both options going forward. So in order to use the DMV wallet option, obviously this may surprise you, but you select the California DMV wallet button there on the left. That takes you to the next step, where we will pop up this modal window in front of the student that displays some contextual information as well as a QR code. So the way this works is the student will pull out their smartphone, which is a required device to interact with the DMV. They will open up the DMV app. They are obviously presented with instructions here to go and download the app from whichever app store applies to their device. They upload their driver's license and properly configure their MDL within the app. Based on our experience, that's usually a pretty fast process. And once they have that done, they can scan the QR code on the screen and begin the process with the DMV. So as Jane mentioned, once they scan the QR code, they are in DMV land. They are interacting with the DMV. It's a third-party process. And when that is done, when success is achieved, they are returned to us, and this screen, this modal screen right here in OpenCCC, will resolve itself, and the student will be taken to the next step. So in the case of OpenCCC, what will actually happen is when the modal screen disappears and they proceed, they're done with OpenCCC. They go wherever it is that they were trying to go. Most of the time, that's going to be to the application itself. On return visits to OpenCCC, if they need to update attributes about themselves, et cetera, we will show them information about their verification. So they'll be able to see that they are verified or not. They'll be able to see which service was used when they performed their verification successfully, and they'll be able to see when the verification happened. And as I mentioned, we do show them information if they are not verified as well. So if they have never verified, that's also presented to them, and they have options from that OpenCCC edit profile screen to jump into either verification process. And also they will be shown if they are expired, in which case they can do the same thing. The other thing that's worth mentioning is that there is a time component to this. So students are given a certain amount of time during the DMV session to complete their verification. If for whatever reason that time elapses and they're not successful, the modal simply closes. They can reopen it and try again. So if they're taking a little bit more time to set up their MDL within the app, that's totally understandable. It's not a problem. They just simply need to relaunch the process from the screen. So verification status, again, is valid for 365 days, and that applies to both ID.me and the DMV process. So it is the same length of time for both ID.me and DMV, 365 days. So on that return, on the 366th day, if they do come back then, they will be reprompted. They will be informed that their verification has expired and prompted to verify or opt out again. So I assume if you're here, you're probably interested in giving this a shot for yourself. So as Jory mentioned earlier, we have plans to put this into the pilot environment at the end of the month on October 31st. So it will be there and available for you. However, you don't need to wait until then if you'd like to try setting up your MDL for yourself. So you can simply go to download the DMV Wallet application from the App Store that is associated with your device. You can set up your MDL ahead of time and play with that. Once that's done, and once we put the product update into pilot in OpenCCC, of course, we'll notify the field that that's happened. You can log in, and it's worth mentioning that in order to see this experience, as I said before, you will need to test with an unverified account. So you can either create a new account to do that with in pilot, or you can simply unverify yourself. And to do that, it's pretty easy. Just go to OpenCCC and edit one of your first or last name or your date of birth, and we will unverify your account, and you'll be able to test any of the verification options again. And that's a little trick you can use if you want to do this at any time. So once you have your MDL set up, and once we are in pilot with the new code, you are able to then see this interstitial page and click on the DMV wallet option. You'll be able to scan the QR code, and see for yourself that you successfully verify that your account will change status to verified, and that this process will work, and that this data will then flow through, obviously, to your college SIS via Superglue. Oh, Jane, so you are on mute. I'll hand this back over to you.
Yeah, thanks. We're going to get into some technical details for those of you who are going to be handling the back end piece of this. And the good news is that it is the same as what you're doing for ID.me. We wanted to make this, turn around this project quickly, get this online, also make it as easy as possible for you. So the identity verification data fields delivered to colleges are going to, both the statuses for ID.me and DMV initially are going to be all in the existing ID.me verification status fields. So it'll tell you whether the student's verified or unverified or whatever. And that'll be in the same fields that you've already integrated with your SIS systems. If you want to know which system verified the applicant, so the verification status is in those fields, we do have a new field, the verification source identity field, and that'll indicate whether it's DMV or ID.me. But that's the only field right now that you guys would need to pull in if you're interested in that. Otherwise, the student's verification status will be delivered as in the past. We've got, again, lots of documentation links throughout this presentation and also on the release notes and on the public documentation site. And I can show some of that since it sounds like, it looks like we might have some time after our Q&A. The Superglue adapter that is going to deliver the new verification source identity field and encompass all of these different transactions from the California DMV wallet is coming out in parallel with the pilot release of this feature. So it is targeting October 31st for a pilot, which means that when you work with your branded pilot site and you test this out, you should see the data flowing through in pilot through that pilot staging table. So it will allow you the opportunity to take a look at that, take a look at the new source verification source identity field, and get ready. And then the production version is also ready the same day as this feature goes live. And we can get into Q&A. I know that some of our team have been taking a look at those and answering those. Let's see.
I think, Jory, do you want to talk a little bit about the options as they exist?
Yeah, that's great. It's a great time to do that. So as the team is going through the Q&A, just wanted to mention, right? So in terms of the options available to students for verifying their identity, obviously we have ID.me that's been in place. We're adding the DMV mobile wallet. The third option does remain campus verification, right? So there is that option for a student to come to campus. We know that's not always the most convenient situation for a student, but it does remain an option for students as well. And the team, as we roll this out, we really are looking to reduce as many barriers for students as possible, as has been said before. So know that this is one new method that we're providing as an option for our students. And we will continue to work on enhancing anything that serves, the different populations, because we know we have a very diverse group of populations that we serve in our state, including, under 18, undocumented, foster youth, and other groups as well. So.
And Victor, your question in the chat, one of the things I want to make sure we convey here as well is we are rolling to pilot in production, and as with any of our releases, if there are language challenges or the way that we framed a statement or other things we're finding are confusing to students, part of what we are always analyzing is our help desk data, so that if we see those challenges or we have feedback from the colleges, we will be able to update them as we go. So thank you, Victor, for that suggestion. We've been going back and forth about how to make this clear that you have to have a California driver's license and not from another state, but that it's not necessarily tied to residency. So thank you for that feedback. Craig, I see that there is a question specifically calling you out in the chat or in the Q&A. Will districts be compelled to verify applicants in person if they will not or can't verify electronically in early 2026?
I see. Yeah, this gets to the question of mandatory identity verification. So yes, once identity verification is mandatory, applicants will need to go through either one of the electronic options or an in-person option.
The other item that we touched on a little bit, Jane, I think if you go to the next slide, we can present our resources. So we've got some questions. Are there places that we can get more information? We have release notes and technical resources that are available. We have also been working with the Foundation for California Community Colleges communications team to update the toolkit that was provided to colleges for the ID.me rollout. So it will now include DMV. We have that finalized as of, I believe, yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
And that will be distributed as well. So this includes information to share with your students about how to prepare for the verification, which methods might work best for them, and to share with your staff so that they know what the students are experiencing as well.
Yeah, and the student infographic is going to be, there's a version in both English and Spanish that can be used.
So Jason, for your question about ID versus driver's license, the ID will be fairly quickly available. We're hoping within a few weeks. There are just a couple of differences with data elements that the DMV shares back to us as the partner agency. And so we're working through that, but we expect that it will be really quickly after we launch for the driver's license that the ID will be the option as well.
And for those of you who follow the legislative news, being able to use the ID cards is going to be very important because our legislature has passed the ability for those who are living in California but who are not officially residents to have a identity card, to get a California DMV identity card in the same way they can get an AB 60 license. So that's going to open up a lot, this, ability to have this solid identity proof to a lot more of our California people living in California. So I'm excited for that. That won't be coming into law until January 1st of 2027, but at least we'll be ready for it when it's there.
And I'm going to just call out Julia, because Julia, you had indicated you wanted to answer Sonny Martinez's question. Did you have a chance to respond to that, or maybe you'd like to respond live now?
And it is pertaining to ID.me versus DMV verification. So might be best to follow up after this. But the short answer is, if that were to happen, you should open the ticket with the Technology Center, and we can create an investigation case with ID.me.
Right. So none of these methods are 100% foolproof. It is possible theoretically to defeat an identity verification process, as it seems like Sonny Martinez had encountered.
Well, and to that point, just to remind everyone, this is one layer of our overall strategy, right, for verifying that our students are actually students. And we have heard loud and clear, right, from various incidents that happen, that if not only at the course registration stage, but also when ghost students or bot students get into classes, how that disrupts learning for other students and creates a burden for the instructor. So again, we are, without sharing all of the details on a statewide webinar with hundreds and hundreds of people here, identity verification, we start with that where we can, and where that meets the needs of our students and doesn't create unnecessary barriers. We also use various other tools that are at our disposal throughout that student journey into our colleges. And again, this is a collaboration between the Chancellor's Office, Tech Center, and the colleges. And so we're always looking for ways to support the work that our student services professionals are doing on the ground with our students.
And yes, I'm rather excited about this because, and I'm sure, Jory, you've heard this too, but for at least 3 years, we've had a number of staff and administrators and even faculty say, can't we have a direct line to the DMV somehow with our colleges? And so I'm excited about this because we've had a lot of requests for this exact direct link to the people who are the source of this, very important piece of identity data. So I think this will actually prove to be really valuable to us as a system, but also to our students who have been, many of them, victims of identity theft.
To reiterate and to answer some of the questions that have come in, a recording of this webinar along with the associated frequently asked questions and summary of the questions that were asked and answered today will be distributed at the conclusion of the webinar. They will be remediated and distributed within the next 5 to 10 days.
And in the meantime, if you're bored, we have lots of documentation. So we have on our public CCC Applied public documentation website, we have a lot of information that goes over with all the links that you need to get spun up and to help your students with this. And also we have our release notes available and open already, and that includes the pilot testing instructions so you can get ready for the 31st. You can test in your costume.
We continue to get a lot of great questions in the Q&A, and they're being answered in text, but we can tackle some of them live. Mark, your question about whether there will be additional funds. There are no identified funds, particularly to support in-person identity verification. There is the student, the college block grant that could, potentially be used to support this type of activity, for instance. So that would be a new source of funding, but it's not specifically targeted to this.
Yeah, the hope is with the ability to get events that tell you when this student has verified immediately after they've done it, that even if they didn't verify before they submitted their application, your staff can point them to it and that they will actually follow up on that. Hopefully that will take some of that in-person burden off, and certainly we would like to hear feedback from the colleges as we get into this.
Yeah, and there are some other questions about, I see Camille Zombro asking about, are there any thoughts or efforts underway to make identity verification easier for recent immigrants, refugees, and asylees? And I think it's an excellent question. And I think one that, we need to think through in partnership with the field. Like how do we make that process easier for vulnerable populations or populations that are challenged with documentation that would allow them to verify their identity? So I think we're taking notes here as well. Thank you for that question.
And our state is supporting that too with the legislation that created the AB 60 licenses and then now the identity card that the DMV itself is supporting. So I was excited to hear about the identity card in particular because not everybody has access to a vehicle for the driver's license. Oh, and Jason, if you're talking, I see that you're asking about the DMV process in person. So there are select locations throughout the state that do support, if you want to go into that office, that will help you to set up your MDL and get it going. And so it does mean a trip to the DMV office, but there is some support for that. And in the release notes, as well as in the documentation on the CCC Apply public doc site, we have a link to the map that actually shows all of those locations.
There are a couple of questions regarding the Superglue events table and verification after the point of initial account creation and application submission. So we do have colleges who have started using this option for verification to meet FSA requirements. And you can direct students back if they have not verified, if you direct them back to the initial entry point for your college application, they will be prompted to verify. And if they go through the process for either DMV or IDME, their verification status will then be sent to the Superglue events table, and you will be able to get that information. We do have details on that. Jane, are those included in the Superglue release notes in terms of those asking for what that would look like?
Yes. And in the data dictionary.
So be sure to look for those details. It is helpful. We've heard from a couple of colleges that have been able to alleviate some of the burden on their financial aid offices by leveraging this post-application as well.
Mm-hmm. And Roseanne, I actually, as usual, I love your suggestion about an administrative interface that could allow authorized users to submit some of the in-person licenses that they might get for validation. That is not something that it has right now. Again, this is very new, and it's still considered something of a pilot on the DMV side. But they've, in working with them, they're really open to, how we see it playing out in the field, and have been very open to ideas for future enhancements. So I really like that, and we will share that with them.
I have a couple of questions for the Chancellor's Office that have come in regarding mandatory verification and whether a memo will accompany that.
Yeah, was just seeing that one. So yes, this mandatory verification is, separate from this rollout of the DMV mobile wallet. So, so just make sure for clarity purposes, this will go into the pilot environment for all of the colleges to test out October 31st. We'll go live November 14th. As we move closer to mandating identity verification, knowing with an asterisk on that we do have certain populations that we have to have special considerations for, there will be guidance coming out from the Chancellor's Office related to that. But to reiterate what Craig mentioned earlier, that has been the direction from the Chancellor and from the Board of Governors, is that ID verification is a critical part of our layered strategy. So we do anticipate moving to that model, and we'll provide that guidance when that's ready.
I see a question regarding data quality differences between the two options for IDME and DMV. Both of them come back as a verified status. They check many of the same things. The data elements that we send to the colleges will be the same data elements. It will just be a source of the verification. So we are not making a distinction at this time with regards to quality of verification.
There is also a question about, if students are flagged by a local district after verifying through the new process, should those identity holds automatically be cleared? We're providing the data about whether that identity was validated. As was noted, you will get that source data if you ingest the new data field that's coming that would show you if it's DMV or IDME related. So that, of course, will be a decision that your district or your college would make locally. Our goal is to provide you with as much information about that verification process to inform that. So wanted to share that.
Colleges don't need to do anything to enable this. This will be live automatically, both in pilot and production.
Yeah, and there is a follow-up question too about users who are under 18. So again, just kind of want to point back to the workflow that was shared. So users who are under 18, they just will not be prompted to go through this verification with DMV or ID.me. That's currently how it's happening for ID.me. We're placing DMV alongside that as an option. And so again, can't go into the specifics because we don't want to give away to any potential fraudulent actors the methods that we're using. But we do, look at that data and look at how we receive that data, things like that, to flag potentially fraudulent under 18 accounts. And I'll leave it at that.
And Carmen, I see your question, but I'm going to answer that offline. We do have some processes to help with your question about, spam and marking them so they can be blocked. But I'd rather not get into those details here. So we will follow up with you.
I have a question
Oh.
about Gabby's question, and I was just looking at the website, driver's license guide. I had not looked at that before. It appears to be a document that helps people learn how to do a good job of validating driver's licenses, in person. So I don't know if someone's had experience with that. That could be a useful tool, but it's not one that I personally have experience with. But if you recommend it, Gabby, we can check it out.
So David, to answer your question about the pilot environment, as Mike said, if you used your pilot test account or a pilot test account to try out the ID.me verification a couple of years ago, you should be expired and can be able to do this without changing anything. But you will have to use your real, mobile ID and scan the QR code. But obviously, this is in pilot. And so it's not going to behave like a pilot production system, but you'll get at least the experience that your students are going to get in that scanning that and getting that verification back. You can use fake data on your test account. What's going to happen though is it'll get overridden. So with the verified data. So Carly, you're saying if the students are not able to successfully verify, is that right? Then we recommend they, if they really are struggling and they can't figure it out, there are a couple options. First of all, if you take a look at this site here that I'm on, the DMV site, there is an Ask DMV chatbot that has, browser supported languages, and they can ask questions about the mobile driver's license, and they can get help that way. The other way they can get help is by going to one of the DMV locations that supports mobile driver's license, and setting that up and helping, providing live in-person help at that office. The other thing is that they are able to move to the ID.me process, which does have an option for verifying their identity with agent assistance through a Zoom session. So it actually has that support there. So those are multiple ways they can get some support on this. Oh, I see what you're saying. It's about the under 18. Under 18, like I said, the DMV does support minors getting their mobile driver's license, but they do have to use that in person at one of the specific DMV locations to do that. And they have to go with their guardian to the DMV so that they can have permission to do that.
Maybe it might be worth answering Roxana's question live about
Yeah.
if students opt out. Do you want to take that, Jane?
Yeah, sure. Absolutely. So once they opt out, all they have to do is sign back into, later on, if they said, hey, I just didn't have time, and we get this all the time, students who are applying, within the last week or so, they just don't want to take the time to gather the documentation or do it. They opt out, and then later on, many colleges are having already have a process where they want the students to be verified before even enrollment, perhaps, or certainly before dispersing financial aid. So they'll request that the student go back. They just have to sign on to their OpenCCC account and go through it at that point. And again, all the colleges have the Superglue events table at this point. That was rolled out a while back. It has live, near real time, immediate events to let you know when a student has verified their identity through one of these means. So if after the application you ask them to do that, and then they go off into a corner with their mobile device and they get it done, you should get that notification almost immediately that they've done that. And I see C Vang. Yes, sometimes it can take that long. Sometimes it happens right away. A lot of it just depends on does the student already have a IDMe account? Many California people with a driver's license have gone through that, because if you wanted to get a real ID, IDMe had been the system to do that, and I think it still is to get the real ID. So if you already have an IDMe account, it's very fast. You sign in and pretty much immediately are verified. With all of the documentation, if there's questions on what's been submitted, or they want to follow up via live session, it can take longer. That's why we feel this has a lot of promise to be easier for the students. Because if they already have their license, they already have what's needed to get through this process. And it should be a lot faster.
Okay, it looks like Jory and Craig, there's a question from Dan Watkins in the chat if you want to talk a little bit about that. I know you all have been working on the coordination piece of addressing this.
Oh, you're muted, Jory.
I just realized that, yeah.
I'm glad I'm not the only one. Thank you.
It has to happen once, right?
Yep.
Yeah, Dan, thank you for raising those points. I mean, I think definitely developing and standardizing alternative solutions, knowing, again, yeah, you mentioned undocumented, out of state, underage. We know we have international, we have lots of different populations. And so that's really what we're trying to do, is create a suite of options that can meet the needs of our diverse students. And this opportunity came up with DMV. We continue to explore other ways, other types of partnerships or products that can help us work with those different populations. So the access is, or the intent is always to make access as burden-free and easy for real students as we can, right? And it's a balance that we have to strike, unfortunately, to make sure that we are also catching fraud and saving those seats for real students.
And again, keep in mind, this is a fairly new technology that the DMV has put out. And we've already talked a bit about, especially with ID card support, that could open up support for a lot of minors. And so the hope is that as they mature that offering, that can be something that's supported going forward. Again, I think we're going to be a really good source of input to them on how they can enhance it. And yes, any regular students can opt out and complete their verification. They would go through that decline verification screen and do that for you, Joel.
Okay, we are just about at time. Any questions that have not already been answered will be addressed and distributed with the recording. And the last question that I'll answer from the Q&A is, are students able to verify via the mobile driver's license after submitting application indefinitely, or is there a limited time? It is always an option to verify based on whether they already have. So anyone who is not yet verified can be sent through the process and be verified. There is no window after the submission of an application. Colleges can request that the student goes through and verifies later, especially as it relates to disbursement of financial aid dollars, to make sure that we're mitigating fraud and combating that as much as possible. So it is always an option. And with that, are there any closing comments, Jory or Craig?
Yeah, we just want to thank everybody for your time this morning. As was noted, we'll get a copy of the presentation and answers to any unanswered questions out to everybody that was here. Please know that, you know, we share the desire to serve students and to, you know, help them get into their journey as quickly as possible and welcome them into our colleges. So if you have ideas or other, you know, ways that you think we can be helpful at the state level as we're working in this partnership, please reach out. We would love to hear your suggestions.
Yeah, just a quick shout out to the Butte Technology Center team and the Chancellor's Office staff who've worked very quickly and very efficiently to make this option available. It's a really significant step towards kind of improving the quality of access for our students. So it's not enough just to have that wide open front door. Unfortunately, these days we need to make sure that we are guarding the access for authentic students and not having bots and you know, fake students taking those valuable seats. So this is all part of that multi-layered defense in depth strategy. And thank you to everyone who attended today to learn more about this option. And we'll continue to follow up and we'll release a memo soon about the mandatory identity verification that will be forthcoming. And thank you.
Thank you so much, everyone. Have a great day.